Okay, our third example. We have an apple that was dropped 8 feet from an apple tree. We're going to write an equation. So this was not thrown. It was just dropped. So that means there's no velocity. There's no B term. We're talking about feet. So we're going to use negative 16 as our A value. And the initial height was the 8 feet. So remember, when something is dropped, there is no B value. There's no velocity. So our Y represents the initial height in which our object is being dropped in this case. The vertex is also going to be the maximum height of the object, which actually is also your y-intercept. So notice here, this is our y-intercept, is the initial height, and it's also our vertex. So in 0 seconds, our vertex tells us the maximum height, which is 8. The 0 represents, this 0 is going to be negative, it's irrelevant. This 0 is going to tell us how long it takes for that apple to hit the ground. What is the initial height? The initial height is 8 feet. The maximum height, guess what? We do not need to do negative b over 2a. We don't need to do all that because we can see that the vertex is the y-intercept. It's 8 feet. What is the height in 3 seconds? It may have already hit the ground. So let's see what the height is when we plug in 3. If we get a negative answer, we know the apple hit before 3 seconds was up. So we have negative 16 times 9 plus 8. That gives us a negative value. So at 3 seconds, the apple has already hit the ground before 3 seconds. Okay, because you cannot have a negative height. If you get a negative height, the object has already hit the ground. How many seconds will it take it to reach the maximum height? Well, it started out at the maximum height, so that was 0 seconds. So 0 seconds was the maximum height. How many seconds will it take for the apple to hit the ground? So we're going to use the quadratic formula. Negative b, we don't have a b term, so we're just going to have plus or minus. We're going to have 0 squared minus 4 times my a times my c over 2 times a. So we still have our plus or minus. So we have a negative times a negative. So we're going to have a positive. So we're going to have 4 times 16 times 8. And that gives me 512 over negative 32. So we're going to have a negative root 512 over negative 32, which will give us our positive answer. And then we have a positive 512, but it's being divided by a negative 32. So I can tell you this is going to be our irrelevant root. So I have negative square root of 512 divided by negative 32. That gives me about 0.7. So this is about 0.7. This one's going to be negative. It's irrelevant. So this point is about 0.7. So it takes less than a second for the apple to hit the ground.